What's up guys? Jimbo back again with another knife review for you today. This will be the very first of its type that I've ever done here on the Mr. Jimbo Fox channel, so please bear with me. Today we've got what I feel is kind of an unsung hero in the world of kind of folders that exceed their monetary value with overall quality and materials and everything that we knife collectors love. This is one that seems to kind of fly under people's radar, including my own. This was one that was actually brought to my attention by a friend of mine, Justin at White Mountain Knives, and he had asked me if I would give it a look, as he felt it was a knife that, like I said, exceeded its value, and not a lot of people seem to take attention to it. Today we have the Benchmade HK model 14300. So you can see the HK logo on there. This is manufactured for HK by Benchmade. Not a lot of people know this, but this is actually designed by the one and only Mr. Mike Snowdy, who pretty much anyone who collects knives has heard that name before. Excuse me. He's done a lot of work for Benchmade. He makes his own custom knives. He's big in the fixed blades. He's done a couple of those for Benchmade, and he's got a lot of those that he's made out there on his own that are really popular. And he's kind of known for making really wild designs and just absolutely awesome attention to detail on his creations. But as always, let's go ahead and get into the specs on this guy. Okay, the close length comes in at 3.9 inches, so just under 4 inches. The blade length comes in at 2.97 inches, so just under 3 inches, giving it an overall length of 6.84 inches. The weight on this guy is, I would call it moderately beefy. It comes in actually at 3.5 ounces, which may seem a little bit heavy for a just under 3-inch knife, but guys, when you look at how beefy this knife is and how thick and rugged it is, 3.5 ounces actually seems kind of light. I mean, this thing is really thick, between the handle scales, the overall width of the handle, the back spacer, the thickness of the blade right there. I mean, this is a seriously beefy knife. You're not quite on point with a fixed blade. I've really never seen a folder that is, with the exception of the Gerber Metolius. But as far as sub 3-inch folders go, this is definitely one of the beefier ones that I own. The blade material is a 440C, and the heat treatment on it seems to be pretty good. It's really held its edge pretty well. I've carried the heck out of this thing and used it for a wide number of tasks, everything breaking down boxes, opening up meat packages, letters, I mean, you name it. I've tried to put this through as wide a variety of EDC tasks as possible, and the edge on this thing is still outstanding. The blade shape on this is kind of funky, as you noticed there. It's definitely one of the more unique ones that I've seen. Benchmade calls it a modified drop point with a recurve on the front. I'd probably agree with that. I mean, it's definitely in the drop point family, simply because the tip goes straight out, and then you've got a curve down in the belly here, and then kind of a level edge right there. It's the front of the curve is definitely a lot steeper than you see on most drop points. Most drop points kind of have a more gradual curve that goes out and down like that, not as just kind of straight down and back, just like this. When I look at this, I'm just kind of reminded of a couple of things. The first thing I think of is kind of a bulldog, because of the smugness of the face of it, it's just kind of smushed in right there. Another thing would be, I don't know why, guys, but when I look at it, I see a snub-nosed revolver. Kind of the old school Philip Marlowe private detective, 38 special that he's hiding behind his trench coat kind of deal. And that's one of the things that drew me to it, was that it was so unique looking, and I'd never really quite seen a blade like that. Okay, the grind on it is a high hollow grind. As you can see, the grind starts right about there, so about 30% of the way down the belly. You got a pretty substantial amount of belly on this, guys, and the grind on it, I feel, is absolutely outstanding for slicing. Not quite on point with a full flat grind, but for a hollow grind, this is definitely one of the better ones that I've seen. The blade thickness at its thickest point right here on the base of the spine is 0.146 inches thick, which is pretty thick for a folding knife. As you can see, you've got good degree of jimping right there, and very oddly enough, the blade, you know, comes to an extreme taper right here as it goes towards the front. It gets super thin, so that you've got a nice thin blade when it comes to cutting, but the stock on it is nice and thick, so that when you stick your thumb on there, it's nice and wide to get you a really good grip. The handle material on this, they call it a dual textured Zytel. As you can see, you've got two different types of textures on it. It is basically the same material. It's Zytel through and throughout, but up here, it feels a little less like Zytel and a little more like polyamide that Kershaw uses, like on the Kershaw Scallion, for example. You know, it's got that kind of almost rubber-like texture, kind of Rubbermaid type of feel to it, which I've always liked. I've always thought that made a really good material for folding knives. Then back here, it's just kind of your standard Zytel, you know, kind of smoothed out Zytel, which is nice. There's nothing wrong with that. As you can see, you've got a pretty substantial back spacer right here that actually goes down all the way to and past the bottom, which I feel gives the knife some really good balance, because you've got a pretty beefy blade up here, and if the back end was a little bit too light, this thing would be really, really nose heavy. It'd be like a muscle car, you know, where it's all the weight's in the front of the car. So that's good stuff. And definitely one of the finer points on this thing that really hits you right off the bat is the deep finger choil. I mean, this is just freaking awesome. I mean, you get nice, good grip in there with your index finger, and your thumb just slides right up here to the jimping. I mean, guys, that is so comfortable. I mean, this is so well made for the human hand, for both fine cutting tasks and maybe even slightly harder cutting tasks, that I'm just absolutely in awe that Benchmade and Mr. Snowdy have done such a great job on designing this knife. Okay, the pocket clip on this is definitely one of the few hits that I would have to give on it. Right side, tip down only. I see absolutely no reason why they couldn't have modified the pocket clip to, at the very least, give you lefties the option out here. You know, I don't see a reason why they couldn't have made it tip up as well. I'm sure there's a reason, guys. I'm not an engineer here, but I think that's something that would have propelled this knife from really good knife bordering on superb knife, if they would just give you that one option to go tip up. Because in my opinion, with the blade shape and the way that it's designed, and just the overall feel of the knife, tip up I think would serve this knife a lot better. However, you do get a pretty low carry, which I will show you in the front row seat segment of this video. The carry on this is pretty good. You know, definitely one of the better ones that I've seen for tip down. The coating, as you can see on the pocket clip, guys, I have been using this. It's kind of coming off at certain points right there, so coating, not really so great, but you know, not really all that big of a deal to me. As you can see, this is a somewhat flow-through design. You do have the back spacer in the way there, but it is put together with torque screws, so if you'd like to take the handle scales off and clean your liners out there, you can do that. And this is a liner lock, which is a bit unusual in the Benchmade world, as they have championed and made famous the almighty axis lock, definitely one of my favorites. Liner on this is a little bit unique in the vein that, and I will show you more about this in the front row seat version, but on top of the liner lock, and you can kind of see it right there, you've got kind of almost like a ball bearing detent that locks the liner in there, you know, with just a little added layer of protection, so that even when the liner slides a little bit to the open part, if you can hear this, it's got that little ball there, so kind of an extra layer of security when it snaps into place. So good stuff. It's just one of the things I noticed right off the bat, and I thought that was really cool. Deployment and lockup on this, guys, it's a little bit tricky to kind of get used to it because of the finger troll. But basically, the best way that I've found it is you get your thumb in there behind the thumb stud, and you just kind of rotate it out counterclockwise. It is definitely flickable. It takes a little bit of practice. I found it's easier to start right about there and just kind of flick up and out at the same time, and check it out. There you go. So definitely flickable. Liner's was pretty stiff when I originally got it. It did take some loosening up. I did oil the joint a little bit with a little bit of lube, and it loosened right up. And just after a couple days of use, we were good to go. Okay, blade centering. Slightly off to the right, not exactly center, but not that far off. Definitely within acceptable tolerances in my opinion, so not too bad. Good job, Benchmade. Okay, the country of origin on this, guys, is Taiwan. Benchmade does make a few of their knives overseas in Taiwan and a couple of various other places, and that's not uncommon. Spyderco does the same thing. There's a lot of companies out there who use Taiwan, but so far, in my opinion, the quality control in this knife seems to be pretty good. This seems to be a pretty well-built, well-designed knife, and it's definitely not your flimsy piece of crap, you know, with the average made in, for example, China product. This is definitely something that I think is worthy of the Benchmade name, given its respective class. So good job on that one. You can see the thickness on that blade there, and it just kind of swoops to super thin really quick. Look at those thumb studs, kind of pyramid style. Take a look at that pocket clip. You see I've got some battle scars there, as I have been using this thing. This is definitely a user knife for me. Look at the texture there on the Zytel. That's kind of rubbery up there and plasticky down there. It's pretty thick, pretty wide. Back spacer there. Take a look at the blade. You can see the HK logo there. 440C, made in Taiwan. Right there you can see a little kind of ball detent type of thing. The liner lock, I just thought that was pretty cool that they added that. Just one little extra layer of protection, making sure that sucker snaps into place right. Alright, we'll go ahead and do some size comparisons here. It's Mr. Benchmade in the middle there. Now we'll go ahead and open it up. And we'll do one I feel is somewhat comparable to this. The Spyderco UK PK. Comparable in price, dimensions, materials, and just overall craftsmanship. The Benchmade Mini Griptilian, one of my old go-tos. And on top, another one I feel is somewhat comparable. I haven't brought this one out in a while. The Kershaw Cyclone, or Mini Cyclone rather, excuse me. Just about the same size overall. Reasonably thick. It's the Streamlight Microstream. Alright, go ahead and show you the carry view here, guys. As I mentioned earlier, this is right side tip down only. But, as you can see, the carry on this is pretty low. I mean, that's definitely not quite as good as, say, the spider wire clip or the SOG Flash 1 Flash 2 bayonet style clip. But for a tip down only carry, I think that's pretty impressive. That's definitely one of the lower ones I've seen. Comes in and out of your pocket nice and smooth, very low drag. Doesn't seem to tear up your pockets very much. So even though it is tip down, and I definitely prefer tip up, I don't really mind it so much on this knife. It's easy to get out. Go ahead and deploy it. Fold it up. Good to go. Do a little cutting demonstration here. Again, I have used this, guys. I've actually had this knife for over a month, and I've carried it, I would call, fairly extensively, and put it through just a myriad of everyday tasks. And we'll see how the blade edge retention holds up here. Ooh, that's a pretty thin one. Wow. Just having trouble getting a bite on it. There we go. Absolutely destroying the paper. I mean, wow. For 440C, that's impressive. Excellent job, Benchmade and Snowdy. So, in conclusion, guys, I think the Benchmade HK 14300 is a very, very high value knife. For only about 40 to 50 bucks, give or take, eBay seems to be a good place to get these. But given that price range, I think for what you're getting, you know, for the quality of knife that you're getting, I really think that this exceeds its actual monetary value. I mean, let's face it, guys, basically a Benchmade built Snowdy design knife for 40 to 50 bucks. That alone would get me to buy something, you know, with between the Snody name and the Benchmade name, wow. I mean, that's a heck of a value right there. I would put this on par with something like maybe the Spyderco UK PK as far as what you're getting versus what you're paying, you know, where the user value seems to exceed the actual physical monetary value. I would put those two just about equal. They do differ a little bit in price. The UK PK is closer to 35 bucks and this is closer to 40, 45 bucks, but they're in the same ballpark, and they both just kind of remind me that even though you're not spending hundreds of dollars on a knife, that does not mean that you cannot get a quality knife made by a quality designer and a quality company with excellent quality control, with good materials, and that just simply works. This is right around the 3-inch mark as far as blade length is concerned, which is right at that sweet spot for me. It just works for me personally. And I think it's a really, really good kind of beefy, everyman knife, you know, for a myriad of tasks. I would not call this a hard use folder, guys, simply because it's a liner lock. It's a damn good liner lock, but I would still classify this as a BUF, basic utility folder. You could probably use this one a little bit harder than your typical liner lock, but I really wouldn't push it on this one. After all, it is still a liner lock. It's a really well built liner lock, but you know, liner lock's a liner lock, guys. So I you know, to wrap things up here, I could definitely give this one the Mr. Jimbo Fox recommendation as one of the best values that nobody seems to know about. You know, this kind of diamond in the rough that just seems to kind of evade everyone's peripheral vision here as far as EDC value folders are concerned. So if you're in the market for one of these, if you want a Benchmade quality and Benchmade build knife, and you're a fan of Mike Snody and you don't have a lot of money, this right here is as good as it gets. I'd like to thank everyone so much for watching this review. I hope you have found it informative. If you were on the fence about this one, I hope this has helped you make your decision either way. Go ahead and give me some feedback on this, guys, good or bad. And as always, I appreciate the comments and support that I receive from my viewers, and as well as the rest of the knife community and the other knife reviewers out there. You guys are awesome. And as always, guys, stay fit, stay strong, stay supreme. Take care.